This quiet country road is where it's believed an 11-year-old boy was tasered by police on Thursday. A 37-year-old man was taken to hospital. The prime suspect, a child. RCMP say they found him in a neighboring home and coaxed him out. Then he was tasered.
Well, the RCMP announced today that they have busted one of their own. Surrey Constable David Clark is facing 15 charges: possession of stolen property, trafficking marijuana, and a dozen firearms charges. Stephanie Mercier has details.
Cartridge magazines, you've got semi-auto rifle, semi-auto rifle, semi-auto rifle.
At the RCMP's E-Division headquarters, Sergeant Rob Vermeulen lists some of the items a Surrey Mountie is accused of having. Constable David Clark has been under investigation since October.
Thank you very much for coming.
The RCMP Public Complaints Commission says officers failed to give medical assistance and the cell he was left in wasn't safe or habitable. It says 4 officers in particular fell far short of national policing standards of conduct and decency, while others stood silently by while the sick man was mocked. The Commission recommends training officers and guards to deal with conditions that can arise from intoxication. The Whitehorse Detachment track and monitor how guards and officers respond to acutely intoxicated people, and all officers, guards and matrons at the Whitehorse Detachment be trained in how to be respectful.
We've come a long way since women had to fight for their rights. Women are no longer second-class citizens in most of society, right here in Western Canada. Gone are the old men who think women are inferior, or at least we hope so. Women can vote now. They can hold public office. Women are supposed to be protected by the law, but they aren't. Right now is a unique point in history. 2 women are in power over one of Canada's oldest and traditionally sexist organizations, the RCMP. 2 women, our Premier, Christy Clark, and our Solicitor General, Shirley Bond, are in charge of public safety. And for the first time in history, they're in a position to protect citizens from the RCMP, and above all, they are in a position to protect women from the RCMP. To start off, Shirley Bond and Christy Clark can send a message to the rest of the country that sexism within the ranks is unacceptable. And they can send another message, too, that allowing children and women to go missing, while the men within the RCMP justify 5 hours to book 1 drunk driver, is a crime against everyone. But first, the 2 cases that come to mind immediately, directly from women who work within the ranks of the RCMP themselves. The first case is from Sunday, January the 14th in 2007, a full 4 years ago, that a Mountie calls sex harassment systemic. In Winnipeg, sexual harassment and gender discrimination within the RCMP is a problem that has been ignored for too long. This is all the way back in 2007. According to a Manitoba Mountie, she filed a lawsuit against her employer back then. Corporal Sherry Lee Benson Podolchuk claims she suffered years of abuse that forced her to take stress leave and caused ailments including depression, anxiety, and a loss of self-esteem. Enough is enough, she told the Winnipeg Free Press. It's unfortunate it had to come to this stage, but the RCMP had ample opportunity to rectify this situation years ago. But this is a systemic problem that they don't know how to deal with. Senior officers who have the power to make decisions about this don't know what to do and just pretend everything is fine. And then you add this to a very recent story that occurred right here in British Columbia. A high-ranking Burnaby, BC RCMP officer has been accused of using his power to sexually assault a mentally vulnerable female subordinate and then coerce her into a sexual relationship and threaten her into silence. On August 31st of 2011, the Gazette, the Montreal Gazette, carried a story about a BC RCMP officer. According to a statement of claim filed in the BC Supreme Court on August the 26th, Staff Sergeant Travis Pearson, previously a professional standards supervisor, directed Constable Susan Gastaldo to come to his home in May of 2009 in order to discuss her return to work after medical leave. Without Gastaldo's consent, he allegedly forcibly inflicted harmful sex that included anal intercourse despite at least 2 demands that he stop. During the next 4 months, Pearson allegedly gained submission from Gastaldo that was directly related to his authority over her and the command culture of the RCMP, and this is according to Gastaldo's lawsuit. Vancouver police were asked to complete an investigation in 2009 after Gastaldo complained to the RCMP, but the Vancouver Police Department investigator concluded the evidence did not support the complaint and no charges were laid. The police investigating the police has failed once again, and the RCMP are getting away scot-free. The RCMP contract is finished in the spring of 2012, just a few short months away, and they need a new contract, and they're demanding a 20-year contract. The province negotiators themselves won't reveal the details of a province-wide audit into the performance of the RCMP, since they say, if we reveal the details of the contract, it will taint the negotiations. Just like the Conservatives and the federal government, the Liberals in British Columbia are negotiating a multi-billion-dollar contract behind closed doors. They aren't revealing a thing about what it actually costs to run the RCMP or how much of a raise the RCMP are asking for, since the general public is not being asked if it wants to maintain the RCMP in BC. Vancouver just recently said that the riots showed that one police force, a police force without the RCMP, was necessary for the Greater Vancouver Regional District. In Kelowna, where the RCMP can account for 1 out of every 5 municipal dollars spent, the RCMP won't justify how it spends its money to the people that pay for it. And not only do they get away with murder, they won't investigate anything of any value. But they are considered revenue generators for local municipalities, where they are judged on giving out tickets to you and I to generate income. The latest report on crime, released on October the 26th of 2011, was that the murder rate was at its lowest since 1966. But they did note that rape was on the rise. We have our National Police Force more interested in pursuing pot growers and giving out traffic tickets than setting a precedent for investigating such a heinous crime against women. And that brings us to the 2 women who hold the RCMP's fate in their hands. And for the first time, all these 2 women have to do, all these politicians have to do, is nothing. Christy Clark and Shirley Bonds can simply not sign with the RCMP and allow the early deadline to pass by. The Harper Government demanded that the RCMP be signed early, long before its contract was up, since the Fed was fed up with negotiating. Well, they weren't counting on this. Starting in November of 2011, we as a group at Radio Free Canada are going to start educating the public about how easy replacing the RCMP is, something some municipal leaders have a tendency to over-dramatize. When we start thinking about creating the BC Police Department, the only thing you have to remember is simple. Up until now, it only took 6 months of military training in Regina to create a police officer in Canada. And that officer could be as young and immature as an 18-year-old. That's rather disturbing when you think about it. Being a police officer in Canada means that you only have to do a couple of basic things. You have to learn the law so you can interact with the judiciary, and you have to maintain the law in the general public. You also have to be a healthy individual, both mentally and physically, to last a long time in the industry. Now, learning about the law in the rudimentary form the RCMP are taught in Regina can be taught in any college in British Columbia right now, So that part's not a difficulty. To learn how to maintain and enforce the law, well, we have numerous empty military bases throughout the province that can easily accommodate a large training group. And for instructors, there's a world pool of security and police training agencies that will set up curriculums faster than you can say government grants. And that's how easy it would be to replace the officers in the field in the next 6 months. Because there are a couple of other things that would make the transition a lot easier. The first thing is that a great many legally educated members of the RCMP will want to stay or transfer to beautiful British Columbia. There are a lot of world police forces that we could entice to send members from to help more easily integrate with the world population our province is attracting. We could entice officers from other countries who speak languages and have cultural backgrounds that more match our citizens than just one particular cultural set. And finally, there are 2.5 million people right here in British Columbia. Even if we were to lose the entire force of RCMP officers and their support staff, we would be only creating about 25,000 jobs. And with 200,000 people out of work, an estimated 500,000 that could use higher paying jobs, and another couple 100,000 that aren't accounted for, well, I'm sure that we can find suitable replacements rather quickly. So that brings us to resources. The actual housing and operations of the RCMP, the tools of the trade, well, they've all been bought and paid for. Quite literally, municipalities throughout BC have been buying all the staplers and special weapons, communications devices, and other necessities since the RCMP came to BC. The municipalities own everything that's in there. Local money paid for every item that the local RCMP uses every day. So we need not replace one flashlight in the future. So you have to ask, what else will we be getting? Well, for the first part, we wouldn't have to pay the RCMP a huge raise. We can also easily write a new code of conduct for the BC Police Force that includes transparency and accountability for every action they take. And above all, we can start a tradition of honor. This is a message to Christy Clark and Shirley Bond of the Provincial Liberal Party. It's time to stand up to the bullies from Ottawa that want to force 20 more years of problems on the citizens of BC. It's time to end the chauvinism, the discrimination, and the callous attitude that the RCMP maintains as a tradition across the nation. It's time for women to stand up with Christy Clark and Shirley Bond, or hold them accountable. Because if Christy Clark and Shirley Bond sign up with the RCMP, they will have failed countless generations of women before them who are waiting for the end of the abuse. The women in history are waiting for a real new beginning. This video was created as a direct result of the federal government forcing the RCMP contract be renewed early. It was made because I found out that the contract with the RCMP has nothing to do with fixing problems surrounding accountability, corruption, or brutality. The contract with the Harper Government is only about money, which is the only thing that seems important to the RCMP themselves. I'm sending this video out as a message to Christy Clark and Shirley Bonds, but I'm also sending it out to every woman warrior out there who can communicate with them. I'm not sexist. However, I do understand reality. I, as a man, do not speak woman. So I need your help. I need you to get this video out to every strong woman there is out there, and for everyone seeing this video to forward it, every single one of us, to the Premier's office and the office of the Solicitor General in British Columbia. We need you to form groups in your own municipalities on Facebook and any other social networking sites or email groups to make sure this chance doesn't simply waste away. I have laid out the groundwork, and I'm going to add more, and I'm going to create a direct appeal to the warrior men out there, so men don't think you're being left out. We have an opportunity to create something real, a legacy for the future men and women of British Columbia, a chance to write our names in the history books as a people moving forward to complete the work of those who fought so hard in the past. It's time to appeal to the sanity in every one of us. It's time for change. We can end the abuse and corruption. We just have to act now. I'm Darren Howard.